Hi guys, and welcome to another video from Stupid is the Norm, the channel where we demonstrate how to become a millionaire in 10 years whilst earning only minimum wage. And in this episode, a bit of a landmark episode, because this 2 days ago is the 5th anniversary of starting this project, and coincidentally I reached full financial independence on that same day. Full financial independence means that my unearned income from property is now equivalent to the earned income I make from cabbing, and in this episode I'm going to explain to you step by step just how I achieved that. So 5 years ago, you know on a CV when you put all the peaks and all the great things you've done, well, in between those peaks are some troughs, and I found myself in a trough, and I was working behind a bar on minimum wage with no money in the bank and £10,000 of the credit card debt. So I decided to set a plan to become a millionaire. Why at this late stage in life? Well, I was 57, and in 10 years time I reached retirement age, which is 67. So I got a bit of a philosophical kick up the backside that I'd wasted my life thus far, and I needed to do something really drastic in order to achieve the remarkable lifestyle I've always wanted. So I decided to become a millionaire in 10 years. Now the first thing I did, I said I had £10,000 of the credit card debt. It was costing me about £440 a month to service that debt. So I went down to the local bank, the closest one to me, which was the Halifax bank, or the banks that are available, and I borrowed £10,000 and repaid that credit card debt off in one go. That single act reduced my outgoings by half. So it was about 440, and this new loan repayment was £220 a month. So I made £200 just like that, just by looking at my consumer debt and moving to the lowest interest rate. The other beneficial thing was I had a 5-year term on it, and so I knew if I just made the payments that after 5 years all this debt would be gone. The alternative was to keep the credit card payment and pay the minimum on it, and that, I believe, would have lasted me a bloody lifetime. So I would recommend the first thing you do if you're looking to save money is look at the big numbers, which is consumer debt. If you've got credit cards or you've got store cards, consider going to a bank and getting a loan. The interest rate will be over half of what you're paying on those cards. Borrow the money, pay them off. That'll save you some money and make you some money, which is the same thing. Now, I was working behind a bar from 5:30 till half midnight. I was the evening time manager, if you wish to give it a grand title. Same money, it was on minimum wage. So clearly I need to make more money. Now, working that back shift gave me time during the day to do something else. So I decided to become a cab driver. So I looked at a few companies, decided on one, got myself qualified, paid my license fee, and I became a cab driver within a couple of weeks. I started then working from 7 o'clock in the morning as a cab driver till 4:30 in the afternoon. Then I'd go home, get changed, something to eat, back in the bar 5:30 till half midnight. 2 full-time jobs, and I did this for about 3 months. Absolutely knackered. The human body is a magnificent thing and it will adapt, but it was shattering. So I decided, for the sake of my own health, that I would just bin the bar work and become a full-time cab driver. I was, however, going to maintain the 80 hours a week, 2 full-time jobs, equivalent to, but it was an easier work style to do, because after all, being a cab driver is not a stressful job, and all you're doing at the end of the day is just sitting on your backside and talking to people. So that's what I did. And guess what happens when you double your hours? Yeah, your income doubles too. So now it was a hard grind. Now I just had to keep on doing 80 hours a week. So for 2 years, it's a bit boring here, but once you decide on a goal and you have a plan to achieve that goal, you then need to just execute the plan. So for 2 years I worked for 80 hours a week, 7 days a week. 2 years. It's not quite true, I took 4 days off a year, Christmas Day and Boxing Day. So I took 4 days off in 2 years. I was living off 40% of what I earned, saving 60%, which was about £1,300 a month. But after 2 years, I'd saved £20,000, which was enough to put the deposit down on my first rental property. So my first rental property was a 2-bedroom semi-detached on Teesside. It cost me £63,000, would you believe? 5 years ago now. It's gone up in price since, but it cost me £63,000. Rent was £550, mortgage was only £87 at the time, and £50 a month for someone to manage the property for me. So it was pretty much hands off. So I was netting about £400 a month. Add that to the £1,300 a month or thereabouts I was saving from cabbing, and my savings rate gone up to £1,700 a month. Now, I was explaining in the bar what I was doing to my best friend, and he said, "Oh, I should have done that years ago, got involved in property." He says, "Well, I'll tell you what, why don't you and I buy a property together?" I said, "Well, I would, but I've just made myself skint because I've gone from the £20,000 in the bank to nothing because I've just bought a property." He says, "Oh, that's okay, I've got plenty of cash. So what I'll do, I'll put the money into this property that we'll own together, and then that'll give you time to save your money, and then when you buy your third property, we'll buy that one together." I couldn't see any downside, so I agreed to do that. So within 3 months after buying the first property, we'd acquired a second property. This coincidentally was 63,000 as well, but it was a 3-bedroom terrace property, again on Teesside. and that too rented for about $550. Same mortgage, same management fees, although I'm half on the rent on this with a friend, so I've gone from 1,300 saving in cabins, 400 from the first property and 200 from this property, which meant that I was saving more money, that the time it took me to save 20,000 reduced from the 2 years to just over 3 years. So another year later, I buy a third property. Now the original plan was I would buy this third property and half it with my friend. I would put the money into this because he put the money into the first one we bought together. However, he couldn't prove income to the bank, so he couldn't get involved in this, and so I bought the third one by myself. So I've got £400 from the first one, £200 from the second one, £400 for the third one. So I'm now making £1,000. Now my income split or spending split on bills in the house with my wife is that I'm responsible for all the bills to do with the household. So it's things like mortgage, council tax, gas, electricity, water, all the things that allow us to live in the property. And my wife's responsibility, hers is to buy the food and the nice things like presents at Christmases and birthdays. So at this stage, I'd reached financial independence light in as much that my responsibility for paying the bills was £1,000 and my income from unearned income from the rents was £1,000 too. So after 3 years, I'd reached financial independence light. And then the world went a little crazy. COVID was already in by this time, but then the Russians invade Ukraine, the cost of fuel goes up, the interest rate went up because inflation had been sucked in because of all the printing of money we'd done during COVID. This was happening all over the world, it wasn't just a UK thing. So mortgage interest rates went up, I was making less from the first 3 properties. So whilst I continued to be fixated on the goal, which is to make that £1 million in 10 years, the strategy had to change. So rather than buy buy-to-lets, what I decided to do was get into serviced accommodation. When I say serviced accommodation, if you think Airbnb, but not for people who are staying for the weekend and going visiting, sightseeing if you wish, this is for contractors. So if a company is working in Teesside but they are from London, then they would send their contractors up and generally put them in hotels, which is expensive. Instead, we offer them a nice house they can stay in, which will save them half the money it would cost in a hotel. The good thing with doing it that way for myself is that you can charge a daily rate, and on this property it's going to be about £105, £110 a day, which means you're getting over £3,000 a month instead of the £500 you would from a buy-to-let. The downside is you're now on the hook for all the utilities, so gas, electricity, water, mortgage and such like. So your overheads are great, and plus you have to furnish the property. They can't just walk into an empty house. You've got to put beds, you've got to put flat screen TVs, you've got to put Wi-Fi, fridge freezers, washing machines, tumble dryers, plates, knives and forks, napkins, everything you'd expect to find in your own home, you've got to furnish. So the cost to get into it are higher, but the income's greater. So it took me, not the 1 year it had been taking me to save up to buy buy-to-let properties, it took me 2 years to save the £40,000 I needed to get into this property. And here we are 5 years into the game. I completed on my first property 2 days ago. It's Sunday now. I completed it on Friday. It's going to take a month or so to get it all ready to go. So next month what will happen is I'm pretty sure we'll rent it out straight away because there's a shortage of serviced accommodation where it's going to be on Teesside. The government have made Middlesbrough a free port and they are pouring billions in there and sucking in contractors from all over the country because they don't have enough local labour to do that, and that's going to continue for some years. So that probably is going to bring in £3,000 a month. The management fees are going to be about 600, the mortgages are 350, bills are going to be about £500 a month. I think I'm going to come away with £1,000 to £1,300 a month on that one property alone. So if you add that to the money unearned income from the 3 properties already bought, that means that the unearned income total is greater than what I make from being a cab driver. So at this stage, in the 5th anniversary, I reach full FI, which means that my unearned income is equivalent or greater than what I make from my earned income. And I could at this stage retire on full pay after 5 years. Remember where I started from? Minimum wage, no money in the bank, £10,000 of the credit card debt, and I did it in 5 years whilst earning minimum wage. So I could retire if I want to, but hey, where would be the fun in that? Now here's where the compounding effect starts to kick in, because prior to this 4th property, I've been pretty much responsible for generating the income. You know, I had to turn up, I had to get in the car, and I had to drive for 11 hours a day in order to make that. And so I was the one person in the business. But you hear people say you've got to make your money work as hard as you do, and that's what I've done, but it took me 5 years to do it. So now I've like gained another partner, because there's me making the money and there's the money making the money, and the money actually makes more money than me. So now there's two of us in the business, and this means that the time it takes to save money to buy another property contracts. And so what I think is going to happen moving ahead, I'm going to save another 40,000 in the next 12 months, and thereafter I'll be buying 2 of these a year. I think looking ahead that it's probably going to take income in the next 5 years, or another 5 years, to about £16,000 a month. I'm pretty sure I'll do that unless the government changes the rules. Now the government can do a number of things to screw the whole thing up. They could outlaw serviced accommodation, local authorities could license them, tax them massively. So there's a number of things can go wrong with that, but the rules as they are now, as they stand right now, I can project that that's where my income will be in 5 years' time. But that's in 5 years. I'm going to celebrate the milestone I've done today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any questions, if I've missed some details out, put them below and I'll answer them as usual, guys. In the meantime, don't be stupid and don't be normal.